It's now time for On the Line with Cheryl Wilkerson. The conversation will range from local dialogue to international. This show is meant to enlighten, inform, and to inspire. On the Line with Cheryl Wilkerson begins now.
Hello and welcome to On the Line. I'm your girl, Cheryl Wilkerson. Thank you for joining me on this Sunday. You don't have to do it. I don't take it lightly. Today, we're going to talk some politics. On the phone with me, I have, let's see, how would I describe him? He would be an historian. He's an activist. He worked for years with the Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. He worked for years with former Governor L. Douglas Wilder. He has run civil rights organizations. He is neither Republican nor Democrat. Today, my guest is an American. His name is Gary Flowers. How are you?
Hello, dear Cheryl. Thank you for the invitation.
He is also a radio talk show host in Richmond, Virginia, and he gets it in every day on Rejoice Radio, which is 990 in Richmond, Virginia. So, Gary, thank you for joining the show today.
I'm glad to be here. Happy Monday.
All right, let's talk some politics today. So I was thinking about this thing, and I said, I got to run this one past Gary. You know how when we talk to people about voting and we'll say, you know, we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, we should do this for all they did for us. Suppose we add to that narrative and say, another reason why we need to vote is because we need to take care of our futures. And instead of just always looking back at why we should vote, we should look to the future, because what is going on in the U.S. today, our whole world could be turned upside down if select people are put in office. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. In an ancestral sense, the Sankofa bird reminds us that we look backward as we walk forward. But in politics is about the future. It is not about the past. And so in many ways, throughout the generation since 1965, when we really became citizens of the United States through the Voting Rights Act of 1965, we have preached to our young people, you know, Fannie Lou Hamer, Martin Luther King marched and died for this. It really falls on hollow ears in some ways, because the young people are like, look, mama, daddy, auntie, peepaw, I respect what you all did, but what's that got to do with me? Mm-hmm. And so politics has to be about the present and the future. You have to say, if you want free tuition for college, okay, when you go to college next year, or for your children in 20 years, then vote. If you want to have zero interest rates for, you know, home ownership because of reparations, then vote. You have to make it about something that is present or futuristic, not the past.
Yeah. The looking back is over and done with. I agree with you on that. And so many issues I want to bring up during this next 30 minutes. So how do you feel about the student loan debt program that the president has put forward? Do you see that as a good thing, or do you see that as that's really not right? We don't need that.
Before I get there, if I could just go back to why we must vote. Mm-hmm. Many of the people, you know, bragging about, you know, we marched for the vote. They never marched.
Ooh.
Okay. Oh. You got grown folk who are listening today who don't know their state senatorial district. Mm-hmm. They don't know their state house district. They don't know the congressional district in which they live and vote, and yet they want to preach to young people.
And the young people
I learned many things from Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Among them, you can't teach what you don't know, and you can't lead where you don't go. And so I think, as Michael Jackson said, we have to start with the man and the woman in the mirror and stop preaching to young people as though, you know, the older folk know everything. They know things too. Now, as it relates to student debt, there should be, from the 2007 near collapse of the United States economy through the current period, back then, banks received free money from the government.
Yes.
Because they were too large to fail. They got 0% money. And they were still charging students 3 to 5 to 7% on free money. Those loans should have been free. And if those loans were made at an interest rate, they should be all relieved now. That's just a matter of pure math. Mm-hmm. And these are the banks who already were making money on the fees, the return check fees and the administrative fees and the, you know, overdraft fees. And you walked into the lobby, you know, through the wrong door fee. You know, so they already were crooked and criminal, and then they got free money in 2007. This is the generation that took those loans out. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, they should be relieved. Now, in the case of President Biden, it's only a drop in the bucket. But at least it's a first step. I think he could have done a lot more. The trouble I have with Joe Biden is that his past is coming to his present. He was one of the Democrats who wanted to act like a Republican in the late 80s when Jesse Jackson Sr. ran with the populists, or the left wing of the Democratic Party. And it was Joe Biden and Bill Clinton and Lieberman and Dodd and Al Gore who said they wanted to be Reagan Democrats. And so now his policies are as centrist, really Republican. If you look at the policies of Ronald Reagan, they line up a lot with Joe Biden.
People will get angry and upset with you saying that. You realize that, right?
I speak the truth and let the chips fall where they may. If they are upset, give them my number, area code 773-230-3554, and I will bring evidence for what I said. I double down on it and double dare them to call me.
True or false? I think you're probably a huge fan of Liz Cheney, because Liz Cheney came out and she said, you know what? That governor in Virginia, he's been doing a good job, but he has no right to go to Arizona and campaign for Kari Lake. She's a Republican. She's a Trump Republican. He shouldn't be doing that. And also, she stood up to Trump before. So I'm assuming you're a big fan of hers, sarcasm intended, right?
Absolutely. I shot pool, and many of your listeners shot pool. What Liz Cheney is doing is there's a shot that we call off the rail, or a bank shot. She's actually doing a double bank shot. She is pretending to be liberal because she opposes Donald Trump. Here's the real skinny. I'm going to unpack the knapsack. The only way that she can guarantee that she could be at a top of a Republican ticket is to oppose the entire cabal. But remember, Liz Cheney voted with Donald Trump 95% of the time. And let us not forget, she's the daughter of Dick Cheney, the evil one whose company, Halliburton, took unknown sums in the hundreds of millions of dollars from Iraq. He is so unwanted and fugitive that there are several countries Dick Cheney cannot land in today, lest he be brought up on war crimes. So let's not paint Liz Cheney with some liberal brush. She's doing this for particular political reasons, so that if he's ever indicted or goes to jail or can't run for office, she can say, I was opposed to him all the time.
Do you think
it is happen? What my father would say was the okey doke.
The okey doke. Do you think he will ever go to jail?
Well, it doesn't matter if he goes to jail. I think that the victory would be if he or anyone like him is barred from running for office ever again, pursuant to the Insurrection Act of 1861. Those who tried to topple the administration of Abraham Lincoln were barred, not only put out of office in the Congress, but barred from running for office again. The U.S. Constitution, Article 3, has a provision that if you are convicted of seditious conspiracy, you are barred from running for office for life. That would be the victory. I don't think any jury would ever be able to convict him, just because it's never been done before. Here's what we find, Sister Cheryl, that in the U.S. Constitution, it was written in 1787. Thomas Jefferson had plenty of faults, but one thing he was right on was that every generation we have to update the Constitution, because it is an organic document that has to assume the mores, the social mores of the time. Now, that said, Donald Trump knew that there were such glaring holes in the Constitution. By the time the law went all the way up to the Supreme Court, he would be out of office on his second term.
But he's not that smart that he would have known that.
No. Reagan wasn't that smart either. The people around him are brilliantly diabolical.
The Steve Bannons of the world, that's who you're talking about, people like that?
Yeah. Well, he's just mean. But there are, the Eastmans, that whole legal staff that he had. John Roberts and those who are sitting on the Supreme Court, remember, they argued for Bush to steal the election in 2000. There are 4 Supreme Court justices that worked on Bush's stolen campaign. Now, let's get back to the Constitution. maybe only those who took constitutional law knew this before he came in office, but there's something called the emoluments clause. The emoluments clause essentially says if you own business or are profiting in any way, you have to put those on hold in a trust while you're serve as president, because you're not a king, you're the president. He never did that. He never vacated ownership of his companies. And most strikingly, the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue that was once called the Trump Hotel, on January 20th, 2017, there were delegations from around the world staying at the Trump Hotel. He profited from all of those delegations, and yet he was to do business with them legislatively later on. That is a clear violation of the intent and the spirit of the emoluments clause. But here's the catch, Sister Cheryl, and to your audience. No president had ever challenged it. And because no president had ever challenged it, he knew it would take at least 4 years for it even to be adjudicated with case law.
So he went about doing what he wanted to do because he knew there would be no consequences.
Exactly. And that's because we have such glaring holes in the Constitution. And that brings me to a segue. If all of that I said earlier is the whereas, the therefore is we have to update the Constitution so this can't happen again.
But how are we going to update the Constitution? How are we going to do that? What would that look like?
A constitutional amendment. We have to have a constitutional convention is what they call it. And at the Constitutional Convention, then we update the Constitution it's as simple as this for your audience. If you're looking at a wall and there's water coming through the wall at 3 places, you know where to plug the wall, right?
But
well, we know where the Constitution is linking.
But when we are so divided as a nation, that water's supposed to come through that wall. It's okay because the water will stop coming through. It's such division.
En contraire.
Okay.
The more people who are sensible and fair and just in this country than the few who are following the loser of the last election. Let's not get it twisted. We outnumbered them 2-1, if not 3-1. And so righteous people have to take a stand. Dr. King said, it's not the people who are loud, it's the silent who see evil and say nothing that are the problem.
That's right.
He also said about white moderates, you got to choose a side. He said it's not the white citizen counselor or the white Ku Klux Klaner. It is the white moderate who's most dangerous to the Negro people. So white moderates who know better have to stand up.
They have to speak out. They have to. And
that's right.
When you're talking about changing the Constitution, which you also want it changed in the Constitution about Americans and their guns, would you divide
Absolutely.
that? Okay, tell me your thoughts on it.
So the Second Amendment, there's a sister who wrote a book called The Second. And she wrote this book. And in the book, it's called The Second. And what it states is that the Second Amendment was not just written for white male landowners, against the militia that may come from the government. And that's how it's interpreted now. The Second Amendment was enacted requiring all white men to own guns against the outnumbered, because they were outnumbered against the enslaved. And so the Second Amendment required only white men to own guns, and it prohibited black men from owning guns.
Correct. Yes.
So with that, this current interpretation that we all have a right, to bear arms against the government, that is a misinterpretation of constitutional law. And so we have to show, to your answer, we have to bring it back up that it is, and her name is
Carol Anderson. Is that it?
Yeah, Carol Anderson. Carol Anderson. It just came back to me. Thank you. And so, yes, we have to put that in place now, because it is ungodly and absurd that we have more that we know about. We have more guns in this country than human beings.
Yes. Yeah, it's crazy.
And those are the ones who are that are registered. We have a whole industry now that allows people to produce a gun with a 3D printer.
Yep.
Or to buy separate parts on the internet and put the gun together at home, it's not registered.
Mm-hmm.
But all of this comes with the fear of white people.
What are they fearful of,
white
and
people
what are
only,
they mad at?
Oh, first of all, they're only 4% of the world population. But they know that by 2040, they will be the racial and ethnic minority in the United States of America. And so all of this hullabaloo, as my dear mother would say, may she rest in paradise and power, is around their fear that the black and browns will take over. They will do to us what we did to them. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so that is their fear. That is why poor, angry white men stormed the Capitol. They aren't the danger. They're the 900 white nationalist organizations that the Southern Poverty Law Center documents right now, who are well armed. They go out on the weekend and they take their 8-year-old daughters, their 12-year-old sons, and they do target practice with targets that look like us, okay, in the woods every weekend.
And
they are preparing for war.
Our response should be?
Our response should be that the United States government and all of its military forces should say, we're going to have the last battle of the Civil War. We should seize their weapons, and if they refuse to give them up, then they get taken out. Yes, I said it. Now, that's harsh in some people's terms because you can't, shoot civilians. If those were black or brown people storming the Capitol grounds, you better bet we would have gotten shot. And so I'm not advocating for violence, but if this is a known cancer to the United States of America and the sovereignty thereof, then they are a clear and present threat to our constitutional republic. And if that is the case, then they should be dealt with by the military. The only people in America and around the world who should own assault rifles are people in the military or the police. Mm-hmm. So those should be seized. Some people say, well, yeah, we can have them turn them in. Or no, there's another technology that I think is possible. Guns produced now should have a computer chip, so we know where the gun is. I want to know that if I'm in the grocery store and there's a dude 10 feet from me or a woman 10 feet from me, that I get an Amber Alert that there's a gun within 15 feet of you.
Mm-hmm. That's just scary just to even think about,
Oh.
And they're all around us. They are all around us. Trust and believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you this. Why isn't Justin Fairfax the governor of Virginia right now?
Because of a coalition of white political bigots, both Democrat and Republican. Now, the power structure in America has always favored black people who are passive, submissive, who skin and grin. In animalistic terms, they like tigers with no claws. Justin Fairfax did all of the right things by his academic preparation. Mm-hmm. Graduated from Duke undergrad with honors. Graduated from Columbia Law School with honors. Served as a United States prosecutor. In order to be a United States prosecutor, the vetting that goes through in your background is extensive. And he served there for multiple terms. So if there were any skeletons in his closet, they would have been found. The accusers who came out against him tried it once before with the Washington Post, years before, and the Washington Post lawyers said, this is not credible enough to pursue. Then when they did come out, the first accuser is connected to Mayor Stoney in Richmond and his former staffer. His former staffer's chief of staff's wife went to school with the first accuser. There is a text message from the wife to the accuser saying, it looks like Justin Fairfax is going to be governor in a couple of hours. We're going to have to do something. Can I tell your story to the media? That's how the first accuser came out.
That was because of the picture of Governor Northam had been released to the public in blackface.
February 1st, 2019, where Governor Northam in medical school is on his page. Two images are there. One is him, what I believe is him in blackface, and then another person in a Klan robe, who I believe was his girlfriend at the time, who became First Lady and his wife.
Mm-hmm. So So you're
So
telling
that's
me,
why Justin Fairfax was politically smeared. But he, like William Cullen Bryant says, truth crushed to the ground will rise again. And so we haven't heard the last of Justin Fairfax or any other strong black man or woman. Sterling Brown, the great poet from Howard University, has wrote a poem 40 years ago called "Strong Men Keep Coming." Justin Fairfax is one of those.
he is now representing the family of Donovan Lynch. Donovan Lynch was at the oceanfront, 2 years ago at Virginia Beach, and was shot by another policeman, a black policeman. And Justin Fairfax has joined the family's team to bring some sort of justice to that family. And as you say, he is out and about. For a while, we didn't see him for a while, but now he is back out. In Richmond, there was a big fight, and it would have made history. It would have made history, Gary, to have Kathy Hughes bring a casino to Richmond. What went wrong?
Nothing went wrong. The same wealthy white forces that conspired against Justin Fairfax conspired against Kathy Hughes. Remember, the white power structure does not like strong black men or strong black women. And so Kathy Hughes represents the latter. She is the embodiment of Mrs. Maggie Lena Walker in 2022. What do I mean by that? Mrs. Walker had money. She was the CEO of a financial empire that included an insurance company, a bank, a department store, and she used that to benefit and uplift the black community. But she also had brilliance and competence. Mrs. Maggie Walker had courage.
Yeah.
And so those qualities of Kathy Hughes now, which puts her at odds with the power structure of the Commonwealth of the Confederacy. Another book your listeners should read is In the Matter of Color, which lays out the legal history of African Americans in this country. But Mrs. Hughes, if she was able to have a casino here, it would be the first black-owned casino in American history.
In history, yeah.
Not only that, she would be a power broker at the economic and political tables of Richmond and Virginia. Mm-hmm. And the white power structure feared that. So they assembled their white wealthy voters to outvote blacks in the city of Richmond. And then they put the referendum, the ballot, on the back of the ballot.
On the back of the ballot.
There was trickery, political trickery, because they don't want Kathy Hughes as a strong black woman, the embodiment of Mrs. Maggie Lena Walker, to sit at an economic and political table with them.
They don't want to reckon with her. They don't want to have to deal with her because she's a straight shooter and she's going to come for it every time. Yeah.
But she doubled down. She's moved to the Richmond area.
Yes.
She lives here now.
Yes. Yes.
But she ain't going nowhere. Grammar excluded.
Earlier this week, the headline reads that Justice Clarence Thomas agreed to stop Lindsey Graham's testimony in the Georgia election probe. We're not surprised by that, right? What are we to do?
There should be a limit of terms. There should be a limit of terms for Supreme Court justices first. Secondly, he should be worrying whether he's going to get impeached for the activities of his political activities of his wife.
But he doesn't appear to be bothered. She doesn't appear to be bothered by it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But now, let me get back to the Constitution. No American, we always talk about voting rights. No American, white or black or any other ethnicity, has the right to vote. We have the privilege to vote. Mm-hmm. If we had a right to vote, your felony wouldn't exclude you from voting. Mm-hmm. You get it?
Got it. Mm-hmm.
So with that as a background, the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution gives the states the power to administer federal elections and all other elections. So, in a book written by former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. in the matter, A More Perfect Union, he and the recently late Frank Watkins, it lays out that there is no individual right enshrined in the United States Constitution. Therefore, we have 51 separate state electoral systems. We have 3,067 county electoral systems. We have 13,000 city or municipal electoral systems. There should be one ballot and one voting machine for United States President, Vice President, and Congress. Okay, those are the constitutional officers.
Earlier this
You follow me so far?
Yep.
Okay, if we had one ballot overseen by the government, either a federal court or federal agency, then there's uniformity across the country.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved from Illinois back to D.C. and then to Virginia, there were 3 different ballots that I had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to re-register to vote in each jurisdiction. However, when I moved from those 3 places, I brought my individual right to bear arms, my individual right of freedom of religion, my individual right of freedom of assembly.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to re-register to vote. We have to take the power of federal elections away from states. No other industrialized country does that.
Would that not be a good checks and balance system, that when you move from location to location that we're going to make you re-up because we're going to check and make sure you are this person? Isn't that a good check?
No, that's one of the ruses that they put forward. And that's before we had technology. Mm-hmm. If you move from state to state, they know your driving record quickly.
Absolutely.
Off the bat. So we got the technology to eviscerate that very feeble defense.
Gary, we're running out of time, but I read a headline earlier this week and it just blew my mind. I had to read it 2 or 3 times to get it right. It was talking about Florida's Hispanic voters. They are backing Ron DeSantis over the Democrat Charlie Crist, and they even support those migrant voyages that DeSantis has been sending Hispanics on. I don't understand when we vote against our own interests.
Well, it depends on what you promise.
Okay.
And I think if you follow the money, you may have answers to that.
It's all about the money. That's what it boils down to.
It's all about the money and the minerals around the world.
Everybody can be bought.
Yeah, everybody's got a price. Well, everybody is thought to be bought. I boast that I am unbought and unbossed.
Young man that used to run the NAACP in the state, he did the same thing. Jack Gravely, God rest his soul. I remember him telling me about being taken out of a meeting and taken to a car, and they opened the trunk, and the trunk was full of money. I don't know what they wanted him to do, but he didn't go along with it. So you're exactly right. Go ahead.
And that's why Brother Jack, may he rest in power, that's why he and I never ran for political office.
Mm-hmm.
So if they get you in this political electoral system, then they think that you're supposed to kowtow. And that's what they were so angry about Justin Fairfax. It's like, wait a minute, you have promised to be, a good steward of this corrupt political system. Now you're saying you want to, vote your own interests and vote for people.
And when he didn't bow down to those Confederate statues either.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so I'm an abolitionist, Cheryl. I think the political system needs to be abolished. We need to have at least 5 political parties. We need to have a right-wing party, a moderate right-wing party, a progressive left party, moderate progressive party, and we need to have a labor party. All of our allies around the world have at least 5 to 7 to 9 political parties.
Mm-hmm. And we don't.
It allows for more coverage of the disparate electorate. Right now, with the 2-party winner-take-all system, the Democrats trying to act like Republicans, there's really no 2 parties. This is 1 party with 2 divisions.
Yep, because everybody is sending.
It might as well be the Goldman Sachs party.
That's what I'm saying, because every company is sending a check to both Republicans and Democrats. And Gary, I am so mad that we are running out of time. You've been listening.
Well, call me back. Be back on the show. Stop being stingy with your show.
Oh my gosh, we've been listening to Gary Flowers. Gary, give out all your social media information.
Absolutely. You may follow the Gary Flowers Show by either going to rejoicerichmond.com or on Facebook. Type in the word Rejoice 101.3 FM or at Gary Flowers. I look forward to having you all view the Gary Flowers Show. And if you want to call me, I've already given out my cell number, so call me and give me your views on anything I've said. I'd love the exchange.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you all for listening on this Sunday morning. I'm Cheryl Wilkerson. Have a wonderful...
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
Wait a minute.
Yes,
One more point.
Uh-huh.
I must say that in week 7 of the HBCU band
Yes.
band rankings,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
gold, the green and gold,
Yes.
okay. The Norfolk State Marching Band is ranked number 1 in week 7 of national bands. So kudos to the brothers and sisters on the field.
I have to tell you all, we're running out of time, and I'm going to get fussed at for this because we're running overtime. But Gary did not go to an HBCU, but he knows everybody at every HBCU. Okay,
Because I grew up on the campus of one, and all my family went to HBCUs for the most part. So here's the thing: it's like I told a sister the other day who grew up in the housing project. You may have been born in the projects, but the projects weren't born in you. I may not have gone to an HBCU, but HBCUs were born in me. Boom shakalaka.
And he does that, and he has HBCU presidents on his show on the regular. So Gary, thank you for all that you're doing. We appreciate you.
Much love, Cheryl. Thank you.
Take care. Look, you all have a wonderful Sunday, and behold the green and gold.